So we've decided to put a surgical team and crew into a submarine, reduce it way down in size, and inject it into an artery.
You mean I'm going along?
As part of the crew, yes.
Wait a minute. They can't shrink me.
Our miniaturizer can shrink anything.
But I don't want to be miniaturized.
All right, so this is part 12 of my Proteus build. I'm focusing on my secondary build of the weathering Proteus. I'm going to pretty much wrap it up this week. Lots of progress on it. It went together really nicely. Some really good weathering effects. And I'm getting ready to finish up the top bubble with the pilot and the lights, and so worked out really well. So I'll be showing that finale at the end of this. A little bit more weathering I'll do on it, but I can do that when I'm done with this video, and working on a diorama at some point here. Probably going back to my original Proteus build for now, and with some thoughts of a diorama. I might do that on the side as well. Learned a lot of things from this build, definitely. How to glue it together, the whole lights at the top, some mistakes were made. It worked out well for this kit, but I'm going to have to try a different method from my main kit, because I'm going to want some nice lights there on the top. So I learned a lot from it, how to paint it, get a gloss coat on it. So this was a great build, and it's really going to give me some techniques to use on my main Proteus as I finish that up as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. Let me show you what I accomplished. Alright, so I've begun doing some of the weathering. Rather than starting with the flat earth or the flat flesh, I decided to go a little bit with some of the more of the gray, the German gray, because it matches up with the little spots, the chunks I took away. So I started by basically extending those out, because they would be the paint peeling off and coming loose from there. So I extended those out. That looks pretty good. Like that right there looks really good. That one right there looks really good. And then I just continued on with some of that. So I have some on the top here, and I took the mask off the windows, so they were still a little glossy, but I'll dull those down so a little bit more. I put a little bit of the gray paint on them. There's some more parts that are coming loose from there. Did quite a bit on the bottom. Let me flip that over. Making sure everything's dried. There we go. So that's a nice little view of that. Definitely have some of the little gray coming out from the vents. This thing seep out of there, and the high points like the bottom feet, and coming out of the front there. So same thing there, nicked off some of that paint and have it coming loose. So that's looking pretty good so far. That's an initial coating of that. There's some coming along right there. And then I'll just keep layering on some other of these, but I like this look a lot better, where the overall paint is pretty much intact, but there's definitely some bits coming loose, and there's some smears of paint coming down there. So that's my first pass at that. I will do some more of this, as well as starting to work on the flat earth and the flat flesh as well, to give that a little darker or lighter tones as well. So it's looking really good. I like what it's looking at so far, and I think the weathering is going to look really good on this. So all right, so let's see what else we can do with that. So the next part I'm working on is going to be the only actual part that I'm going to light up on this weathered Proteus version, and that's going to be the top dome. I'm going to have the lights around the edge of it. As I showed in the previous video, when the Proteus is being attacked by the antibodies, you can see the little lights around the ring that are just dimly glowing, kind of showing the death of the Proteus. So I'm going to light that ring up. I'm going to light the main kit I'm building up too, but this one I'm going to light up, and I'm going to have a little figure of Dr. Michaels inside of it to kind of get that iconic shot at the end where you can see his head up in the dome there with the ring collapsed down around him. So here's the parts of the top pilot seat, and some of these I'm going to use, some of them I'm not, but I'm going to have a basic little part for him to sit in so I can have him upside in the dome there. And this whole piece is going to be removable. The entire dome section, I'm going to build a kind of a tube, a cylinder underneath it that will go down inside, and the whole piece will come out, and it'll be all one piece, and I'll have the lights on it and the battery underneath that I can remove if I want to change the battery, because the rest of the kit is sealed. So when I'm done, this whole piece will be all together, and as you can see, there's some little nubs there that it just clicks on the top of the Proteus hull. So this part will be painted, and it will be able to go inside with the figure glued inside and lit up. So I'm going to be using the Paragraphics ring inside there, as you can see, to give me just the lights that I want on there. And there's another ring on top of this, and then parts of this will be painted and frosted as well. So so that's the basic ring and the parts for the pilot chair and Dr. Michaels that are going to go inside. So the lights that I'm using for this, I got from a really good company. I use theirs a lot. They're really nice lights. It's called ModelTrainSoftware.com. They sell the very tiniest surface mounted LEDs. They have the tiniest ones and are very bright, easily lit, and they sell them pre-wired, which is really nice. They also sell them in sets. So like this, for example, is a string of them. They're 26 warm white LEDs, and they're all together. They're all pre-wired. So here it is right here. I can't kind of show you the whole piece, but they're a little wide apart, but that's fine. I'm just kind of folding the wire in so you can see how they're going to be right there. They're going to be that close together when I'm done. And they're super tiny. There's my finger. Really small, but really bright. And they sell the coin battery holders, and they come with switches. So let me turn this on, I'll show you. Alright, so that's how they look. Now, these are dimmed because I put a little resistor, see it right there in the end of it, because these lights are much dimmer. They're noticeably dimmer because the sub is losing power and it's dying and it's being devoured by antibodies. So I wanted these to be dimmer. If I take that resistor off, these are quite bright. It's quite amazing how bright these are. But once again, they're just the tiniest little, turn that off there. Yeah. I mean, they are super small. Zoom in on that. Yeah, so there's my X-Acto knife. You see how big that is by scale. So that is super, super tiny. Pre-wired, and all 26 of these are wired together. So quite nice. I don't have to do any soldering or wiring or anything. I just simply string them all together. So those are going to be, pull this off. Those are going to be around the outside of this ring. And I'll paint the inside of this black so the light won't bleed through. But they're going to be just positioned 24 around this ring. Right there. And then this part goes on top. And as you can see, that Paragraphics, the photo etch inside will block off just the sections that we want the light to bleed through. And the top of this I'll paint black, and there's a ring over top of it that protects it as well. So So those are going to be strung, basically spaced about that size to do all 24 of them. And it's going to wrap around that ring, and then it'll go underneath, and it'll go into the wiring, and I'll trim it down and go into this really small coin battery, which is replaceable, and a little switch, turn it on. So all of this mechanism will just be hanging underneath all of this inside the sub. You won't see any of it, and light that up. So I want to kind of come up with that shot at the end of the image where Dr. Michaels is in the bubble and the antibodies are descending down to it. And I'm going to come up with an idea of how to make those as well for my diorama. So I'm going to work on that and get that completed, and that'll be the next stage of it. And I'll continue on the weathering as well on the outside of the Proteus. So that's coming along well. All right. And here's my completed figure of the Dr. Michaels and the pilot's chair. Most of it I cut off, and I didn't really paint the bottom because you're only going to see it from the top. This is how it's going to look. It looks pretty good. And got some detailing on there. I didn't do a great job on his eyes, but he looks rather bewildered, so that's actually kind of appropriate. But I got his buckles and his and the seat belts and his white suit, his head and his hands. So that's kind of how you'll see him from the top. And he'll be sitting in the chair. And then I have the control panel. I didn't do a lot of painting on that, but that's going to be draped over him. It's going to be collapsed on him. Oops, get up there. Sort of like that. But you won't see the other ends. They'll go back into the back of it. I'll probably trim some more of those. And there's the tube I'm going to have him in. That's going to go up to the top of the ring. And this will go down inside the sub and be removable. And I'll come up with some kind of a flat surface to glue him onto inside of that tube. I'll probably trim it down a little bit more too. So also working on the lights, almost have those completed. Just kind of gluing them bit by bit around it. I have about 15 of them on there now, and I'm taping them down as I get them done using some 5-minute epoxy. So almost completed with that, and then that'll be ready to put the top onto it. And we'll be pretty much done with this once I get it wired up and have the battery in it. That'll be ready to go into the kit. Alright, here's another layer of weathering. I went with some of the flat earth browns, as you can see there, streaking along the surface of the Proteus. And I'm going to do this in a couple of layers. I don't want to put it on too heavy, but I want to definitely show it kind of grimed up and streaking, as you can see. On the sides. There's some there too. Let me show you how the bottom of that is looking. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, yeah, there's the bottom of it. Quite a bit of streaking and grime built up on that, so using basically 4 different colors. I have the dark German gray, I have the flat earth, which you can see right there. I also got a color which is buff. It's a little lighter than that, and then of course the flat flesh that I'm going to put on as well. It's a little more yellowish. So so that's coming along well. Doing a few layers at a time, a few different colors, and kind of mix it up so it looks close up there. It looks nice and grimed up. chewed up, little bits and pieces chewed up on there, so that's nice. Alright, so in addition, I completed the top light ring. Learned a lot from this. Not going to use these lights on my main one. Way too big, too much wiring. It's really hard to get them in there and still get that top on there. So I had to abandon using the photo etch because it just is not going to fit inside that ring. I started frosting up the edge of that ring, but I'll be able to get that on, and then I'll probably cover that up with some thin styrene maybe. But I did come up with the basic look, and I have these dimmed, as I said, so there's the basic lights. This will be okay on this kit because once again it's going to be chewed up and beat up. So even on this top part, I'm going to weather that outer ring so it looks like it's been beat up quite a bit. And the lights are going to be really dimmed, so I just get that faded effect, and it goes along with the rest of the Proteus that's going to look pretty well chewed up. I have Dr. Michaels glued into his seat, ready to go. Alright, so he's ready to put into the top of it. I just have to put a few more pieces, like the little headphones here. They're going to be kind of off kilter. They're going to be like on the side of them, like that sort of thing, because everything's in disarray since the sub crashed, and he's just trapped in the bubble and has the little controls over the top of them. So alright, so this will work out. Like I said, a lot of this kit is to learn about the main build. I learned quite a bit from it as far as the lighting, of course. I'm going to have to go with some much smaller lights in there, come up with a different idea, because that limited space in there. As far as putting the kit together, that kind of thing. So quite a nice learning experience, and it's turning out well. I really like this one, and I like how chewed up it is. Continue to beat that up even more, get an overall grungy look on it, and just about ready to put him inside of it and get that ready to go, so he's all lit up. And then just some more weathering, and I should be pretty much done on this build. So we'll continue on that, and we'll see what we come up with. Alright, and here's just a basic test fitting of the top lights. As you can see, it gives me just a little bit of glow. They actually look a lot more white than that, so I'm going to put some definitely some wash around that to make it look more yellow. But I want that to be really dim and kind of fading and not working right, so I'm going to really rough that outer edge up quite a bit once I get it on there, so it matches the rest of the Proteus, because it's beat up and chewed up at this point. And I'm going to make sure that those lights inside don't shine through. I'm going to mask off the top of that, the part there with the ring. Yeah, so the top of this I'm going to paint black, so I mask that out so it's not, light isn't bleeding through that quite as much. But as I said, the beauty of this kit, of the weathered one, is that it can look really chewed up. That's what I want it to look like. So I want this to be really beat up in the end, and once I get the pilot in there, he'll look pretty cool. Finish some more weathering, and I'll be just about done. And then I can get the start thinking about an idea for a diorama for the brain. So all right, so that's coming along nicely, and we'll get a final completion of this here shortly. All right. All right, so I used my Dremel rotary tool with a little bit of a diamond circular bit on it, and I used that to gouge out some places. You can see there, a little bit there. Did some on the top of there as well, on the edge of that, and then some also on the bottom. There, put it right there, and I'm going to use the German gray wash again to accentuate those, like I did these parts right here. Look like damage through the actual paint, in addition to this other scoring going on. So, and I did a little bit like nicks and dings right along those two. Same thing. So, all right. So let me get those going as well. I got the bubble masked off and painted. I just use the gray on it because I just want to mask it so it doesn't shine the light through. And I got some yellow, and I put that onto these lights so that they'll have more of a yellow hue. It looks really messy there, but it'll look fine once the dome is on it. And I'm going to use some white around that edge, just a little bit, to frost it a bit too. So, all right, so let's take a look, see what else I can do with this weathering on here. Okay, so I used some just the straight German gray in the actual gouges that I made, and then I used some wash to kind of stream it out from there. You can see those little parts there showing some real damage to it, some battle damage. Those there as well, some gouges out of there. A little bit like on that little corner there, some chipped out on the bottom as well. There we go, that looks pretty good. That there too. Just a big gouge out of the bottom where it struck something, and this real big one at the front. I did a couple on the edges, so. Alright, so I like that. I like how that turned out. That's really nice. It looks like more severe damage. I might do a little bit more of that, and then finish up with some of the other washes. I'm going to move on to some of the buff, and then the flat flesh as well, to get some lighter colors in there too. So it's coming along really good. All right, here is my nearly completed top pilot station that I'm going to have removable with the battery. I have the lights there glued on, and I have a little flat piece inside of there, and my Dr. Michaels figure and his pilot chair is going to go right down inside, as you can see. Then the dome is going to go on top of that. That'll be glued into place, and then this ring goes on top of that. It's also glued into place. So on the bottom of it, I have my battery, and I have the switch. I can turn it on. Take this off here. There we go. There's my lights. So I got some yellow paint on those to make it look more yellowed, because the sub is losing power and it's kind of dying, so they're pretty faded. I didn't use the resistor because once I get this on here and it's frosted, I'm going to also put a like a white wash, some white acrylic around there as well. So it'll fade them a lot more. It's hard to see on the camera, but these are some distinct lights. They are much dimmer than they appear. So that turned out really well. Once I get that glued in place, get the pilot glued in there, this whole piece will go in the top and slide right down in there and go flush with it. Oh, sorry. So it'll be removable. I want to change the battery, turn the switch off. So I think that turned out really, really well. I will have to do a little bit of weathering on this ring at the top to match the rest of the sub that's beat up. Maybe chew out some pieces. The interior to, or the outer ring of this, once I get it glued in place, I'm going to use some Vallejo white paint, water that down a bit, maybe put a nice wash on it, just so it doesn't fade it too much, but it will make it look white on the outside with the light off, and then once I get the light on, it will dim it just a little bit more, and that's going to work out perfectly. So that's ready to go together. I got my weathering almost completed. A lot of progress there. So let me go ahead and get this together, get him glued in, get it inside the sub, and then we'll wrap up this video. We'll call it 95% complete here, because all I have to do is work on some more weathering and get that finished. All right. And here is Dr. Michael's glued into place. I left the top off and put it inside the sub so I could line it up. You'll notice he's a little crooked, but that was on purpose, because this is a point where he crashed the sub, and everything kind of broke loose. The mechanism fell around him and it trapped him underneath it, so he couldn't escape. If you look at it from the back there, we see back of his head, and if you look at those stills that I had earlier, he's off a little bit to the right. In the film he's a little lower, but I wanted to see more of him. I have the little headphones broken loose, and they're just kind of stuck in the side of his neck, and of course the controls are, sorry about that, collapsed on around him. There we go. Letting that glue right now with some 5-minute epoxy. Once that all hardens in, I can pull this whole unit out, and I'm ready to go ahead and put the top bubble on and put a little bit of whitewash on that, and that'll finish up the majority of this, except for the rest of the weathering, and that'll be ready to go. All right, and here is the glued on and in place top dome with the lights on it, and Dr. Michael's. Got a little bit of weathering on that top dome, some chewed up parts of it. Dr. Michael's inside, trapped, waiting for the antibodies to finish him off. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. A lot of excellent work done this week on this. I really like how that turned out. Get it over here in the darker. Yeah, and those lights are not that bright, as I said. They're very distinctive, and they're very yellow, which is what I wanted. Once everything dries up, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of whitewash on that as well to dim it down even more. But lots of weathering done. A lot of chewed up parts. And my Dr. Michael's in place on there. So I'll do a little bit more weathering on this, but I'm gonna wrap this up and start thinking about maybe a diorama, but I'll probably end up going back to my main build for now and working on that. All right, thanks a lot. I will see you next time.